All right, question of the day. What is your favorite expansion? Now, I ask that question a lot, but I'm also going to two-part it with a game that is, what is your favorite introductory / next step game? Now, you know your game group, so you know that sometimes a game that looks like an introductory game would actually be a next step game. Or some games that look like a next step game would be a good introductory game.
You sure about that?
So let me know in the comments below what your favorite introductory / next step / favorite expansion is, all of the above. Because today we're taking a look at Aquatica Cold Waters. It's very cold out there. Freezing. Frigid, some might say. This is a card game in which you are managing your hand. Not really, you're not managing your hand so much as you're playing cards strategically out that all have certain powers, and those powers only do a certain type of action, and you can boost those powers. Let's take a look. Now, I never reviewed Aquatica in the first place. I missed it, so I'm actually going to do an overview of how to play Aquatica, minus one or two details, as well as an overview of the expansion. So, take a look right now at how Aquatica Cold Waters plays. All right, this is the Aquatica Cold Waters expansion. Now, a couple things. You get some more kings and queens here. You also get a 5th player, as well as some new components over here, purple mantas. But most importantly up top there is the tribe board. Now, that replaces the old goals from the original game. So instead of having goals that you're trying to hit, you're trying to recruit into these tribes. Now, there's a cost at the top of them. So this one would be 7 coins, unless someone's already gone there, which it's a point per manta. So this would be 8 if someone's already there. The ones on the level 1 side are going to give you a permanent bonus. Say you always get an additional coin when you use to buy, and then 6 points at the end of the game. The ones on the number 2 side over here, they have an immediate bonus, such as the other players must each discard 1 character, but they're worth a lot more points because that's 3 points for each unique manta you have in your player board. So that could be, it's kind of a risk reward, but they also cost a good bit more. Same thing down here, you have your basic cards from the beginning base game. Nothing new here. You do have a lot of new characters down here and a lot of new locations. So I haven't done a review of Aquatica. Somehow I missed it. So I'm just going to give a quick teach of the basic game with the tribes as well to show you how to play roughly the same way. So it is not a deck builder, but it is a kind of a hand management card, not even a hand management, it's a card playing game. But the actions, each of these characters provides a special action. For instance, you could recruit a character. The cost is down here at the bottom, which means you can always recruit 1 for free if you choose to do that. Other things, these locations out here, you can either conquer them with the tridents on the left or buy them with one of the merchants. I believe it's the Sea Lord here on the right. You can buy the location there, but if you take the Legionnaire, you can take that and conquer them. Either way, it's the same effect, you'll get them. Now, what I really love is this mechanic here. You'll take the location, you'll slide it into the board. Let's get a better one, actually. So right here. You'll slide it into the board. Now this is worth 7 points at the end of the game if you can raise it all the way to the surface and then score it. So currently, whatever's in the bubble here, when you do that action, you'll get that bonus. So when you use the Wave Seer, what's his name? Well, I can't think of his name. Let's see what his name is. The Wave Teller. It's close. Teller, Seer.
Samsonite. I was way off.
You can let you score a card. So you'll take a card that has been fully raised and you can score it up here in your scoring area. You'll get the points at the end of the game. You can also use things to raise these up, which is a different symbol, which will bump that up. Then whatever's showing is now your available bonus. This would be if you're going to conquer or use that symbol, you could then get a perk to that. And you can, obviously stack these if you have multiple locations here. This one allows you, when you raise a card, much like I just did, to raise another one further or raise the one twice. This one would be you get a +3 coin bonus when you're recruiting. And this one would be recruit a character for free. Now, once this is all the way to the surface, you're going to get the ability to take that out and score it with that Wave Teller. Other things you can do, you have the Matrona card, which means you can basically flip your mantas back over. Now, the mantas that you start with all give you a bonus, like +1 to raising, +1 to conquering, +1 to coin, or +2 to the color of your choice of your character. So I'm blue, so I would get a bonus when trying to take these locations if I use that manta. When you flip it over, you use it. The Matrona card will let you dig through your discard for a card to put back in your hand, and then you can also flip your mantas back over. Another cool thing is when you recruit characters, they don't go into your discard pile, they go into your hand, which means they're ready to use. Now, if you were to use the recruit action also, that's how you gain the bonuses up top for recruiting into those tribes. You'll use the same action, the recruit tribe, and the recruit a tribe action, which should be the same as recruit, and you'll put a manta up there, taking the points for it immediately. Taking the benefit immediately if it's a level 2, ongoing level 1, and then getting the points at the end of the game. Another thing you can do is scout. So let's say you don't like these locations. You can move 4 of them up here into these locations, making them cheaper, get rid of the rest, and then deal 6 more out. Every time you play the Matrona in a 2-player game, this card will slide off, and then you'll fill it up. The timers of the game would be, had someone has done, or all of these have been empty, this deck is empty, this deck is empty, or all of the recruit places have been placed out. If that's done, everyone, including the person who triggered it, will get 1 additional turn. Game ends. Person with the most points wins the game. You will get a couple of different point bonuses. There's one that's kind of not obvious, I suppose. That would be 1 point for each character card in your hand at the end of the game. So you want to have the most cards in your hand as well, if you can, by managing those cards that allow you to do that. So that is how you play Aquatica and the Deep Water or Cold Waters expansion. All right, so that is Aquatica Cold Waters. Still freezing. Actually, it's not. It's like 98 degrees outside. I do cherish you. Girls of the Summer? No, that was LFO. Abercrombie and Fitch. Chinese food doesn't actually make me sick. I like it. All right, so as you know, we have a rubric system here to grade how I view these games. Now, we are going to take a look at, first of all, art direction, all that sort of stuff, and we're going to get a grand total for the review. So we've got concept, board layout, mechanic, art direction, art gameplay, and the rule book. Now, some of you may weigh these differently in your minds than I do, but they all mean a lot when it comes to the gaming experience. So let's take a look right now. First of all, concept. So the concept to me is an 8, right? You're this creatures, underwater sea creatures, and you're lifting stuff up out of the water. Interesting, right? But, you know, it's like Aquaman, you know, but it's pretty cool. And there's penguins. Is it something I want to play like a Mansions of Madness board game in that theme? No, not necessarily. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's an 8. An 8's great. Come on. Board layout is also an 8. I like how you have the center board, and then my only gripe, I suppose, is when you add the expansion for Cold Waters, which I really love, by the way, and I'll give some final thoughts on Cold Water at the end, is that it does have to lay over the top and completely covers up that board. It's not a big deal, but would I like just, you know, something that was a little cleaner? Yeah, but that's not a big deal. Board layout's an 8. Mechanics are an 8. I really like what you do in this. You take an action and you can boost it with the actions shown in the bubbles of the locations that you have either conquered or bought. To me, that's a really cool way to buff stuff without being overly complex. Like in a deck builder, you have things where it's like, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then oh, this combo's here. Now I can do this and this. And everybody else is like, you feel like Michael Scott. Mechanics are an 8, solid there. Art direction's a 9. Everything has a place. Everything, you know, in a place for everything. All the symbols really make sense. If you do need to look them up there in the rule book pretty quickly. But once you play for about 5 minutes, you go, okay, I know what these things do. It's not a big deal. There's nothing that's super surprising. The only time is that one golden symbol, which means you recruit for free, as opposed to the green one, which means you look through your discard and take one out. So that's really the only one that is kind of somewhat confusing, and it's not confusing at all. Art is an 8.5. Very nice, very great looking art. I love the creatures, the different things you can recruit. All of it looks really solid. Good looking game. Great board art. It just looks really nice, right? It reminds me a little bit of, what's that old deck builder? Abyss or something like that. It just looks really cool, the whole underwater thing, and the colors are vibrant, they pop. I really like that. Gameplay's a 7.5. Now here's why it's a 7.5 and not an 8 to match the mechanics, because while I do like what you do, you play a card, you buff it, there's not a ton of complexity here. Now that's not a problem for people who want to play a lighter game, but this is just, it's a little bit straightforward, and because of what you have out there sometimes based on the color that you're playing versus also the different things at the top in the Cold Waters expansion, the tribes that you're recruiting, those can get a little bit where it throws your game off somewhere. It's like, well, I can't use that. I don't need that, right? So sometimes it can be a little tricky with that. But at the end of the day, the next thing up is the rule book, 7.5. Now here's why I give it a 7.5. Maybe I missed this rule, but I had to look it up multiple times on BGG to see if I was doing it correctly. And it's probably a wording of A or as many to me that threw me off, is when you go to buff a power, you can buff it multiple times if you have locations that all buff that same power. However, it's not explicitly said like that in the rule book. And if it is, please someone post it right here with a timestamp of me saying this, and then I'll gladly say you were right.
How dare you?
Because I don't want to be wrong on that. I actually want to be right on that, because that is my favorite concept of the game, is play a power and then buff it with what you have in your locations and strategically move those locations up so that, yes, you can score them, which I really love, in time before the end of the game, which can happen rather quickly. You may think, man, well, I've got plenty of time. And then, especially in a 2-player game, that Matrona card.
Someone is at the front door.
That Matrona card comes out there pretty quick, and sometimes that can be a problem. So all in all the stats added up together, divided by the 7 categories, gives us a solid 8, which surprisingly, you could have done the math on that pretty easily because everything's right there by 8. The 9.5 outweighs the 7.5, pulling it up, and then that kind of stuff. So solid game, Aquatica and Cold Waters. I will say this. Now, let me just talk about Cold Waters for a little bit here. I'm never going to play without it. Like, even though I like the whole like goal system of the original, I'm never going to play without the extra cards, the extra characters, the extra locations, and the 5th player, because this is a game that will play rather quick even if you expand the player count out. So all in all, Cold Waters is an always play. I'm never going to not play this. In fact, I threw away the Cold Waters box, put everything in the main box to where I don't even have to think about, wait, is this the stuff from the new game? Doesn't matter. So that is Aquatica and Cold Waters. I'm Bryan Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Dice Tower Bryan. Until next time, we'll see you.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vasel.